Damn it, I was muted again. I was muted again. Jesus. All right. We got. Damn it, I was muted again. All right. So, what's up? Uh, I guess you could call it our weekly pop culture live stream where we talk about basically the different things that we have been working on that does not involve wrestling, even though sometimes wrestling does eventually slide in. This week, it's a Scooby-Doo mystery. I absolutely did not have a subject really planned until I stumbled across this article where Mindy Kaling is talking about Velma Dinkley, the Scooby-Doo character, and how she's an icon for gay women or something like that. So that means we have a new um, file for our cultural vandalism streams, which is there's so many. There's so many. But I also read a lot of manga this week, and I read some comic books, and there are some things that I want to hit, but I want to go into deeper later. I guess to give a little heads up, hello for everybody who is here. So there are some people watching. I appreciate everybody who steps in and gives me at least an hour or two of your time every week. Or if you are the kind of person who is consuming a lot of my content, I really appreciate it. I thank everybody, whether you come in for 30 seconds or you stay for an hour or 2 hours. I appreciate it 100%. But what's good, TN Pyro, and anybody else watching? So I read the first three volumes of Battle Angel Alita. I've read the first volume of Mark Miller and John Romita Jr.'s Kick Ass. And I have been reading some other things. I've been reading J.D. Vance's book, Hillbilly Elegy. I wanted to talk about that too, but I'm going to wait until I'm finished with that before I talk about it. J.D. Vance, for people who don't know, is a Yale educated individual who came from the Appalachian area of Ohio and Kentucky. And he ends up, I think he ran for the Senate, United States Senate. And he's a Republican. And the Hillbilly Elegy is basically a mixture of sociology and his growing up. And I want to talk about that probably when I finish the book, because I'm not finished with it. And I don't actually spend a lot of time sitting down reading it, but it's fascinating. I love books where people are literally going into neighborhoods or have grown up in areas. They can give you a little bit of a breakdown of it. There's several books like that. Cody Scott's Monster. There's which is about gangs in Los Angeles. I think it's the 70s or 80s or something like that. Make Me Want to Holler, which I think is Nathan McCall's book. Um, these books inevitably make me angry, but I still enjoy them. But this was the first one I had really read that was about white people, and I can't wait to get into it when I finish it. And I should be finishing with it by the end of the next week. But when it comes to Kick Ass, Battle Angel Alita, I want to do like a show on those because I know that there's movies that exist. The Kick Ass movie, the two movies from Kick Ass, I don't think they cover the entire comic book series, but the comic book series is very interesting. The same thing can be said for Battle Angel Alita. For I haven't watched the whole movie of Battle Angel Alita, just like I haven't read the whole first series. But I think the movie only really covers the first two volumes, um, if I'm correct. Also, I do have they reprinted, and what I mean by they is Titan Comics. They reprinted the Afro Samurai manga, and I have that, and I've read the first book of the Afro Samurai manga. I love Afro Samurai, and so when it comes to Battle Angel Alita, Kick Ass, and Afro Samurai, I want to just do episodes about those. And plus, the second volume of the Afro Samurai book is not out yet, so I'm not going to be able to finish with it because that one is actually ongoing. It's not like the Battle Angel Alita is reprints, and so it's the same thing with Kick Ass. So I have all of the volumes of the original Dave Lewinsky years of Kick Ass, so I'm going to be able to do that plus the movies. That ought to do one episode. And Battle Angel Alita, once I read all 6 volumes, I'll watch the movie, and then I'll compare and contrast when it comes to those, and I'll eventually do the same thing for Afro Samurai. Um, and that's about what else. What else? I really don't have anything else. I guess. Um, no, that's about it. Nothing else really came out, and I'm still behind on Attack on Titan. I'm still behind on that. I haven't started any new manga or any new anime. Basically, I just moved over to Star Trek, and then I took time to watch Tulsa King, and I finished Tulsa King now. I guess I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll talk about Tulsa King. Um, so let's get started because it's 6 minutes in. Um, and that was kind of my preamble of the kind of things that's what I've been doing throughout the week and my plans for the future. We'll see how it all works out in the end. Feel free to make some suggestions or think there's some things that I should be reading and you want to hear me talk about it, but maybe I have not mentioned it before. You're very welcome to discuss it. All right. So the Velma television show on, what is this? HBO Max, I think it is. What is it? Yeah, it's on HBO Max. It ended up being sort of a monster success, despite the fact that pretty much everyone hates it. I don't know if the show has any fans, but it's an incredible success because people have chosen to hate watch it. This is a big problem when it comes to conservatives and libertarians and individuals who are in the cultural space. Is they start seeing screenshots, they start seeing clips, and they immediately pounce on it, and they start talking about it, and they end up giving a lot of free publicity to this something that they really hate. So it becomes like this really crazy cycle of the people who like it will talk about it because they like it. The people who hate it will talk about it because they hate it, but at least people are talking about it, and therefore it is in the cultural space in every direction. So if you have any interest in it, you want to see how bad it is, you will jump in and you'll want to check that out. But if it's good, or if you think that it might be good, you'll jump in and check that out too. And this has become a new way of marketing, as we see with the pregnant Joker comic. People put that out there, and I've seen there's people who have some of my favorite comic book YouTubers. Not your boy Zach, because he kind of fell off. He basically just promotes himself at this point. I don't think he really even does comic book reviews anymore. But a lot of them have tried to clear up the pregnant Joker situation and what really was happening. He wasn't really pregnant and that kind of stuff. But you see that it's outrage marketing. There's another panel out there from a Ms. Marvel comic where a mosque, yes, a Muslim holy building, is turned into an animate object and wants to be non-gendered. And it's really ridiculous. And that has also caused a ton of problems in the comic book space because some people are disgusted. Other people are looking at it like, wow, this is just one of those weird things that happen in comic books. But other people are looking at it as, it's just part of the agenda. And outrage marketing sometimes works because it gets people who don't like it to buy it or talk about it in order to tear it up, in order to put it down, but at least you're talking about it. So Velma ended up being a really successful show for HBO Max, despite the fact that everybody hates it. And Mindy Kaling, who is, I believe, Indian, she did an interview, and this was covered by Breitbart, where she says that Velma is, quote, she's an icon for young gay women. So we're going to read this article. Let's see what we got here. It's embarrassing. It says, sharing DNA with the 1960s Scooby-Doo cartoon and its live-action movie sequels, this adult animated comedy series with a diverse cast premiered on HBO Max Thursday. It looks at high school students Velma, Daphne, Fred, and Norville/Shaggy before they team up with a dog named Scooby-Doo to solve mysteries and unmask villains. Kaling says, quote, there is not a lot of representation of Indian Americans, girls of color in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s animation. Um, and she's Indian. This Mindy Kaling. And she says, so what I loved about Velma is that she's the closest to what I could see. A smart A student with thick glasses that are always falling off, skeptical. She has a lot of these amazing qualities. Um, what about any of that means that she's Indian? I don't know. Where is there a lot of thick glasses, sweater wearing Indians? I don't think I've ever seen an Indian in India wearing a sweater. India is pretty hot, isn't it? I don't remember seeing. Do they wear it? I don't know. Whatever, man. Let's just move on. She says, quote, as a kid watching the reruns of the original Scooby-Doo, I felt like I really identified with this character. I love that she exists. She's not traditionally gorgeous. She's just the gang out because she's so smart. She helps the gang out, I'm sorry, because she's so smart. Okay, how do you identify with this character? Because she's smart? Are you overplaying your hand here? So she continued. The article continues, bringing her own South Asian culture and making Daphne Taiwanese American and making Shaggy Black were ways for Velma to bring the Scooby-Doo story into 2023. The possibilities of animation are so big, Kaling said. We've been so inspired by Into the Spider-Verse and seeing these other characters that can embody the spirit of these iconic franchises. And we were like, why don't we try that? We love Scooby-Doo so much, and we're going to honor it. She continues, it's such an amazing series, a 1960s show, and we love it. We love what other people have done with their own versions of it, like the movies, and we thought this was an interesting, fun way to make a different choice, something that hadn't been done before. The article continues, showrunner Charlie Grandy noted the white appearance of the characters was not integral to them in the original series. Except Fred, he said. Fred felt like a very white person. So we're going into what we call acceptable racism, right? This is some very acceptable racism. We could point out that Fred is white, even though Daphne is also white. Shaggy is also white. But for some reason, Shaggy read black to them. Why? Because he's a stoner? Because he has a dog? You know, black people have dogs, man. I know white people love their dogs too, but a big, like, Great Dane. Oh, I know brothers they like big dogs. Pit Bulls, Rottweilers, Great Danes. Yeah, sure. Scooby-Doo is a Great Dane, right? So I guess because he's sort of a stoner with a big dog, well, he might as well just be a black guy. We're working off stereotypes here. The people who supposedly hate stereotypes, they're the ones who are stereotyping and then changing characters based on the stereotypes that they claim are harmful and or negative. They claim stereotypes are harmful or negative, and yet they're stereotyping characters. That makes no sense. But we're asking for consistency from people who don't know anything about consistency. The article continues. He's the whitest character in the history of television, Kaling said. What does that even mean? Is he whiter than Archie Bunker, who was a bigot, essentially, on All in the Family? He was a bigot. I don't get it. Continues, says, Grandy understood how deeply Kaling related to Velma and how appropriate it was for her to play the heroine. Grandy said, when Mindy came to me and said she wanted to do it, it was because she connected to her because she was this girl who was the smart one who does all of the work and doesn't get nearly enough credit. That's amazing. Nobody else in the Mystery Machine team does anything. It's all Velma. For starters, the narcissism of Mindy Kaling. That it has to be about her, who she identifies as. Not the question of what the character is or how the character operates in her mind. For instance, one of my favorite characters was growing up with Spider-Man. Why? Because I always thought Spider-Man was very cool in terms of, and this was when I was a kid, I didn't really know too much. I didn't think Spider-Man I thought he was sort of the opposite of Superman. Where Spider-Man wasn't particularly strong, even though now I know Spider-Man can like throw cars and stuff like that. He just chooses not to. But he was agile. He reminded me a lot of a wrestler. That was sort of the idea that really connected me to Spider-Man. Is I saw Spider-Man, I saw somebody who was maybe into the same things that I was into. And I couldn't read the comic books again. I didn't really have access to them because there was no comic book shops. And then at that time in the early 90s, they were selling comic books in the grocery store. And to be quite honest, I wasn't looking in that direction. So I didn't really have a lot of comic books growing up, but I got my ideas of Spider-Man from the cartoon series. And I thought that Spider-Man was just a very cool character, you know? Just like I wanted to be like Barry Sanders because he was so super agile, but he was also very humble. I wanted to be like Spider-Man because he was just incredibly agile, but he was a little bit more jokey. He had charisma. He had personality, you know? So you looked at Spider-Man from that particular situation, and you idolized him because of that, because of his attitude, because he had a hot girlfriend, he had a hot wife. But you never put yourself in that position where this Spider-Man is about me. It's about my experiences. I don't live in New York. I didn't never have the experiences that Peter Parker had. It doesn't make sense for me to look at Spider-Man and transplant myself in that position. I've never done that with fictional characters. I almost always, and this is just me, dream up my own characters. If I was to, you know, put myself in that space, I would always say, this is how I would do it. If you have a situation where, you know, your favorite superhero, like my favorite superhero now is Daredevil, where you look at it and you'll say, this is how Matt Murdock would solve this problem. This is how Frank Castle, the Punisher, who's another one of my favorite characters, this is how he would solve this problem. This is how Spider-Man or Captain America, who are all some of my favorite characters, this is how all of them will solve the problem. But each one is individual. None of them have anything to do with their race. But I have my own ideas of how to solve a problem. And so I would look at the situation from the perspective of how I could deal with these particular issues. And it's not necessarily, I'm not transplanting my ideas onto the character because it's not about me. I want to see the character do what the character does. And I want to be able to criticize it because that's part of engaging with the medium. Part of engaging with the medium is to see Goku give Cell the Zenzu bean and say, what the fuck? What are you doing? You know, you would say, that's not something I would do. But is it something Goku would do? And then you may say, that might not even be something Goku would do. You know, like it came so out of left field that you would begin to even say, I don't even know he would do something like that. That's how you engage with a medium. You don't immediately start envisioning characters as different races based off stereotypes. You know, that just never worked for me. But now we have such a narcissistic, belly button, navel gazing, as they call it, society, that these people are constantly looking at these characters as versions of themselves. I identified as this character, not I always liked this character because, you know. And to me, the way you talk about the franchise tells people whether you are really a fan of the franchise or not. To go back into this thing, to sort of work my way back into this article, Mindy Kaling says that she identified with Thelma because, quote, she was this girl who was the smart one who does all the work and doesn't get nearly enough credit. In other words, this person chose to isolate Thelma and completely denigrate what everybody else brings to the table when it comes to this program. So you grew up as a quote-unquote fan of Scooby-Doo, saying that everybody except Thelma is useless. And you say, well, for starters, I don't know that that's true. I think all of the characters played a different role. All characters play different roles, and they only work when they're together. That's why the Mystery Machine team works, because everybody plays their part. Everybody has a different part. It's the same thing with like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers or any other team. Teams have roles. Everybody plays a role. Everybody can look at each individual character, see what that individual character brings to the table, and how that character would deal with an individual situation. So now this show has become a fan fiction self-insert show where and it's mean spirited because it's not coming from a place of somebody who appreciates the cast or who even appreciates the other characters in the show. It's somebody who wants to denigrate the other characters in the show and put themselves in the position of, I do all the work. I don't get enough credit. She's just like me. Well, I'm pretty sure when you work with other people, they probably feel like they're doing a lot of the work too, because they're probably playing a different role. And I understand that because I work in situations where I work with teams. I work in teams and I work with teams. Yes, on the outside, sometimes it seems like some people do more work than others. But you don't know what you don't know. In other words, while somebody might be buzzing around the office they look like they're busy, in reality, they're not really doing that much anything. They're doing a bunch of small things. While somebody who's sitting over in the corner, maybe they don't move in 2 or 3 hours, they're handling the big stuff. So if you walk into an office and don't know what's going on, the person who's buzzing around, walking back and forth, they constantly moving, it seems like they're busier. But the person who's sitting over in the corner, you don't know what they're doing over there. Now, if somebody is asleep, then you clearly know that they're not doing anything. But it's ridiculous that this society, and it's crazy because you would think they would emphasize the teamwork because they're collectivists. So you would think that they would look at it and emphasize the teamwork aspect to everything that they have destroyed. Thundercats, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they would look at these things and they would say, oh, it's a team. We could turn it into a Burger King Kids Club where, everybody's a different race and gender and yada, 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 but it's still a team. They're all friends. They all get along. They all have a common goal. That could be great. But then they don't do that. They do it and they say, well, Fred's the whitest guy in the world. He's not really my friend. And there's no real reason why Fred and Velma can't be friends. There's no reason why they can't be friends. There's nothing in the characters of these two characters that says that they will be at odds. So that means you brought your biases, you brought your hatred, you brought your racism into this situation and decided because you wouldn't be able to get along with somebody who's like Fred, basically just because he's a rich white male, you wouldn't be able to get along with that, even though I'm pretty sure her career, she was glad-handed by rich white males the entire time. There's this cuck fantasy, and I hate to get this way, but it comes from like white guys, where they like to be beat up. And the Tony Atlas, when you see this big blokey black dude, and he got this skinny white woman punching him in the face, stomping him on the head. Culturally, it seems that a lot of white men like this stuff. Culturally, they love, for these Mindy Kalings to come out of nowhere and call you useless and you're trash, you get nothing from but you're married to a white man, but being a white man rather. I read W.G. Phil's comment as I was talking, and sometimes that throws me off. But you have this problem that you inserted into the show, not that existed in the show, but that you inserted into the show. Again, if you follow the pattern of the Mystery Machine, there is no conflict between Velma and Fred. There's no reason for these characters, even if you were to change their race, there is no reason for these characters to get into conflict. They're friends. They work together to solve mysteries. Why is that difficult? Why does that have to turn into Fred is white, Velma is Indian or Pakistani or whatever the fuck? Now all of a sudden they're enemies. Or there's a one-sided hostility where I've seen the scene that everybody's seen. I shouldn't have said it that way. Let me correct it. I've seen the portion of the show that was clipped out where Velma is running down Fred. I saw that. It was on Twitter. How could you not see it? when you see that kind of one-sided mean-spiritedness that's not based on the characters, it's based on the creator. All right? You're dealing with a legacy intellectual property here. There's nothing about there's nothing about Velma. There's nothing about Fred where they can't be friends. There's nothing about Fred where he's completely incompetent. Where do you get that in the Scooby-Doo franchise that Fred doesn't know what he's doing? You know, where do you get the idea that Fred is just some rich white asshole who can't find anything or do anything? Why does that have to be the case? Where did that come from? It came from you. You created it, which means that the division that you're not even trying to co-opt things anymore and just make it updated, quote unquote, for modern audiences or bring the American melting pot concept to Scooby-Doo. You're bringing your personal biases and hatred to this franchise. Now, to what WG Phil is saying right here, it's saying that Mindy Kaling is married to a white man. Guess what? Almost all of them are. Don Lemon, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. How many of them really go on and on and on about how they hate white males and they're married to white males? It happens literally all the time. This is where I get that whole cuck mindset comes from. Because what white man would sit in a room with these bitchy Indians and Latinos and black women or black men too, and go on and on and on how about they hate white people? You're white and you sit in the room and just be like, this is okay. They're not talking about me. It's like, bro, I would naturally think that some of that hostility, you got that for me too. Because it's not just basically stereotypes. These people have dumped everything negative that they believe onto white people, specifically white males. You are literally everything wrong with society. At some point, you would smarten up and say, some of that latent hostility is towards me. And I've had girlfriends who were like that. You know, they would they would sneak diss, subtweet, put up shit about you on Facebook, but it's about you, but it's not about you because they didn't say your name. And you be like, what's up with all this, this hostility, this smoldering heat that people have? But these people it's not smoldering heat. These people are getting paid to go on television and talk about how horrible white people are. And then they go and lay down in the bed with the white man. How are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And what kind of white man who respects himself, not even if you aren't, even if you're an individualist like I am, why would you still be okay with that? Wouldn't you sit her down and say, what the fuck are you doing? If your son or daughter was to be born with my skin color, would that all of a sudden make them everything that you're talking about? It's an interesting situation, but I think it comes from this self-depreciating, especially in white males. That self-depreciation that they have where they feel the need to be abused is weird. It's like, and I understand that a lot of it is they don't take it personally because they don't think it's about them. That's really how a lot of this stuff goes with this liberal racism, right? The liberal racism works because they're almost always talking about very exclusive subgroups of white people. They're talking about the white people in the South, and they all got buck teeth or no teeth, and they're married to their cousins. And do those people exist? Sure. But they have made that the large stereotype for all Southern whites. And now all Northern whites is all stuffy, rich white people. It's like, that's not true either. It's a really, really weird, really weird thing. WG Phil says her child's godfather is white. Probably IVF babies. Oh. Well, my point still stands because even if she's not married to a white man, I'm pretty sure that the showrunner is a white man. I'm pretty sure that the voice actors are white people. And I say that all the time. Like, when you see those commercials, like the Twitter, they do these commercials. dumb white people, where there's a Twitter account that keeps track of how many times or how often new commercials come out that make fun of white people or white males specifically, you would ask the question, why would white men continuously volunteer to do this? The only answer would be desperation. You need the money, right? You need the money, so you're going to denigrate other white people because it's obviously not about you. You can't take it personally. So you're going to take the money to be yet another slave owner or yet another stereotype of white America. Or you're going to pay $50,000 in college tuition to sit into a classroom and people tell you to not have babies because your race is destroying the planet or some shit. What kind of self-hatred comes from that? Because even if Mindy Kaling is not married to a white man, there's still plenty of these other people who are. And I ask the same question of black males who sit in these classrooms and listen to how, women bitch and moan and complain. And you say, and I say to myself, because I've sat in these classrooms, I've argued with feminist teachers. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't really help you in the long run. It actively hurts you to a degree, But you got to have a sort of soft soul where you want to be stepped on and you want to be abused or you have to have had learned helplessness where anytime you try to step up, you've been stomped on, kicked, and pushed back down to the point where you just don't say anything. And sometimes that happens. I know that there's a lot of white people. I made friends with them. A lot of white guys. They sit in these human resources meetings and they listen to how everything they do is racism. Pretty much just breathing and being white is racist. You're sucking up all the black man's air. You're taking up the and you're a racist. And I'll be the one that step in and say, okay, brother, let's ask this question. If a white man has white friends, if a white man has black friends, he's still a racist. Even though he clearly likes black people because he has black friends, he's clearly a racist. If he has a black wife, somehow he's still racist. Despite the fact that he's sharing everything that he has, his life and everything, with a black woman, he's still racist. He could dedicate all his time to Black Lives Matter and black causes and watching all of the approved TV shows and using only the approved language. He's still somehow a racist. He could dedicate money towards these causes. Somehow he's still a racist. He could have never crossed a black person in his entire life. Somehow he is still a racist. So you have to ask yourself, under what conditions can you be a white male and not be racist? What is the conditions do they have to exist? Because, and I'll tell you straight up, they don't exist. They can't exist. Because the moment you say, if you do this, you're not racist, then everybody would do that and you can't say that they're racist anymore. So in order for people to continuously have that racism thing to dangle over your head, every single thing you do is racist. You have too many black friends, you're culturally appropriating, you're Eminem, you're Post Malone, you're all of these people who think that they're black. But if you actively repel that stuff, you don't want to be around it, well, then that's racism too. How could you not like Jay-Z? How could you not like Tupac? Oh, how, you sit in your office and drink your unseasoned tea or whatever, listening to Beethoven because you're super duper white. But if you sit back and you listen to, Ice Cube or whatever, oh, what do you know about rap? You're a white man. It's like you get it from both directions. So the only way for these dudes to really participate in this stuff, like helping Mindy Kaling live her fantasies of being Velma Dinkley, the only way for that shit to really work is you have to have had learned helplessness. You've sat in these rooms and just been abused, absorbed the abuse, was able to verbalize it yourself that you deserve to be abused, and then any abuse that is dumped upon you, you not only are okay with it, but you're openly understanding that you deserve it. And then therefore other people deserve it too. That's the only way this works. So whether they're married to him or not is irrelevant. Because they get very, very angry when people push back. And sometimes it's light pushbacks. It's not even like, somebody goes full, white nationalist. And I say this, I forget the name of the kid. He was arguing with Sargon of the Akkad. It was several years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. His name was Andrew something. He was a white nationalist. I forget what his name is, but he's from Minneapolis. And he nearly broke down into tears because he talked about what he grew up in Minneapolis. It wasn't so much crime. The public housing situation changed. Everything changed. His entire neighborhood changed. And he was weeping because a lot of it was because of African immigrants that had come to the United States. And he was a racist, believe it or not. And he would openly say that he was a racist. But he was racist because of his experiences. He felt like I think they're Somalians that came from, because I know they have a Somali House of Representatives. I forget her name right now. I'm talking too fast. But a lot of Somalians moved to Minnesota. And they took over in the crime rate. Andrew Anglin. That's exactly what his name was. So he became a racist. And it was almost like American History X, where he watched, his entire neighborhood change. And he wept for the neighborhood that he used to have. And at first I was like, if this is the quality of the racist we have to deal with, we'll be okay. He's more sad than anything. He's not let's go hang us some black people. He's just weeping and saying the crime rate has gone up. We can't afford our house anymore. Blah, 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 blah. There's all these black people running around now. They're getting tons of government subsidies for everything because as far as they're immigrants and then they're black, so they're getting all of this stuff. And I said to myself, I have heard black people make that exact same argument about Arabs, about Chaldeans, about Mexicans, about, other Latinos from South America. I've heard them say that about other black people who are Jamaicans or Haitians or whatever. What's special about Andrew Anglin? The fact that he's white and complaining about black people makes him stand out and makes people openly just be like, ugh, he's disgusting. But if you hang around the hood long enough, they'll go in there and start making fun of the Habibis or whatever. They'll go in there and talk all day, about you're all robbing us anyway, you dirty motherfuckers, and all that kind of stuff. They're saying the same thing. The difference is one of them is not allowed to say anything because he's white. It's crazy. But Andrew Anglin is the one that is like one of these kinds of guys. He's on the extreme. I think some of the guys are a little bit on the extreme where they openly are hostile towards other races. But most other people are just kind of like, hey, I would like to be left alone. I would like for you not to call me and my friends Nazis. I would appreciate it if you didn't call us racist. And then they get called racist for saying that they don't want to be called racist. Again, it's really shameful. And you learn to either fight or flight. That's one of the two things. It never changes. Either you fight or you flight. The people who help individuals like Mindy Kaling, that's flight. You have fled from the conversation. You don't even want to have it anymore. It's whatever she says, whatever you say. I'm a racist, okay. If that's what'll get me through this conversation, fine. If I have to sit in this human resources lecture about how I'm a racist and a sexual harasser and a sexist and a germaphobe and a homophobe and all that kind of stuff, fine. I will sit here and absorb it, whatever it takes to get to the next day or to get paid. But the people who fight, the people who are going to stand up and argue, they're not even going to get to this point. They're going to get weeded out immediately. Oh, how dare you talk about, you're not going to participate in our denigration of a fictional character, this Fred character. He's not even real. You know, we're going to destroy this character. We're going to attack him based on his race and gender and his economic status. And how dare you stand up and say you're not going to be a part of this? I mean, I say it all the time. I don't understand why black people continue to do slave movies. That's the next level. Why would you, if you are a black actor today, why on earth would you ever see a slave movie, play, or anything and say, I'm going to go do that? You would be a fool to do that today. Because haven't you had enough of that shit? Haven't you had enough of that shit? Haven't you had enough, really, of being cast in slave movies? Haven't you had enough of being cast in gangster movies? I was just telling my brother this the other day. When I didn't know there was a BMF TV show. I think I may have known it, but I wasn't paying too much attention to it. And I just kept saying to myself, like, all of these fucking shows are the same. You know, who in the world would continue to keep casting themselves as drug dealers and pimps and whores? And I just like, all these fucking shows are the same. All of them are the same. It's very, very strange to me that people don't stand up against these stereotypes that they claim that they want to fight. They claim they want to fight these stereotypes, but they base everything they do off these stereotypes. Everything that they do is based off these stereotypes. It's absolutely scary. It's frightening. Now, before I go back to the article, let's look at what some people are saying here. The TLD, I think she would have made a new show similar to Scooby-Doo, and not Scooby-Doo, it would have been okay. No, it still would have been the same shit. The thing is, people are very angry because it's about Scooby-Doo. Because it is a Scooby-Doo and they're using those characters. That's part of why people are so angry about it. But if she had made a new product in today's world with the same agenda, it would have gotten the same reaction. Because it's the same shit that keeps getting put out, whether it's new characters or legacy characters, about the hatred of white men. You know, the Burger King Kids Club, nobody can get along with the white guy for some odd reason. You know, he's just handpicked. It's acceptable racism towards her. It just doesn't make any sense. Don't you get it, Mongo? The white man split us apart and made us hate each other. Exactly. You know, the white man made you do this show and talk about how terrible the white man is. It doesn't compute. It doesn't compute. Now, there is something to be said about there being a certain class of white male that is okay with that because they don't consider themselves white. But we're not going to go there. Follow Kanye West for such things. WG Phil says, I wish white liberals stopped being guilty and self-righteous. I would rather get called the N-word. I would too. I would rather face open hostilities towards the Andrew Anglin types than have these milquetoast, limp-wristed white people who don't expect anything from you. Like I said, they all like the teachers from Everybody Hates Chris. And once you see that, like if you watch the clips of the white teacher from Everyone Hates Chris and you listen to like CNN or like daytime TV, it's all the same shit. You know, it's all the same shit. You know, oh, I know you didn't have a father in the home, but you know, I can't expect you to be as smart as the rest of the kids. You know, what did Joe Biden say? You know, I think black kids are as smart as, you know, the other kids or something like that. And you'd be like, what the fuck is he talking about? And it's because they have lower expectations for everybody else. And anybody who goes beyond their expectations, like let's say Asians or Jews, those are people who are under attack too. Because it's all about protecting the minorities, quote unquote. And it's like this paternalistic, you know, situation where I say, and I think it was your boy Zach who coined it. I don't know if he coined it, but he popularized it. Purse puppies. And the idea that these liberal white women walk around with minorities in their purse that they feed out of their hands, and they lick them in the face and all that kind of stuff. That's the kind of shit that we got going on in Hollywood in perpetuity. There's just so many of these black people who are just purse puppies for white folks, and it's very, very sad because it's based off of, again, no expectations. Oh my God, you got this far as a black woman? And they would say it, they go on TV and say, I had a hard time being a black woman. And I'm like, you was born in like 1996. What are you talking about? You had a hard time as a black woman. I was born in 84. What did you experience in 96 based solely off your race that I didn't experience? I don't get it. There was no race riots in between 1984. Well, I guess there was in 2020. I guess there was some race riots in like recently. 2019, 2020, there were some race riots. But I guess there were some race riots in the 90s too, in California and stuff. But it was the same thing that happened before. It was all manufactured by the media and white liberals in Hollywood and white liberals on TV who made that shit seem like it was acceptable. And whenever it happens, that's essentially what the case is. You'll have black people who will stand up and say, look, you burned down your own neighborhoods, you destroyed your own shit, what did you really accomplish? Meanwhile, white liberals will be like, oh, it's the voice of the unheard, while they go back to their neighborhoods where shit is not burned down and, nothing's ruined. Their grandma didn't get their house kicked in. I don't know, it's sad. The TLD says, quote, I believe that average white people don't understand that they are viewed at the same level as poor black people in the eyes of rich people. I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly a class delineation. Like, there's a concept called fashionable beliefs. At least I think that's what it's called. It is that when you are so wealthy, certain ideas don't really mean anything to you. You hold those ideas because everybody in your area holds those ideas. And toxic masculinity and a lot of those other things, celebrating riots, that kind of stuff is a fashionable belief. Because it doesn't really affect people in certain income brackets. So you can sit around and start talking about how useful riots are because they don't happen in your neighborhood. They don't destroy property in your neighborhood. You could talk about how shoplifting isn't that big of a deal because the shoplifters aren't in your neighborhood. They're not stealing from the stores that you frequent. The stores that you frequent that might go out of business, that doesn't happen. I guarantee you if the grocery store that was the closest to your house, it packed up and left because of war, incredible amount of vandalism or theft, you would have a problem with that. And in the inner city, it's even worse because a lot of these people don't have grocery stores that they can walk to just around the corner. Most of the time, you'll have jitneys or Suns or whatever, or they have to get on the bus. And then it turns around and the fucking store is gone. And what happens when the store is gone? Well, I guess thank God they have Instacart where, grandma can order her groceries. That's that came just in time. Instacart. Because grandma can't go to the store anymore. Ain't no goddamn stores. You either burned it or you just stole from it to the point where they closed down and moved away. But that's a fashionable belief. It doesn't bother you to believe that or to buy into that or to participate in that because you are at an income level where you are above the consequences for your own thought process. You can vote for stupid shit and it won't really affect you because you don't live in that area. Or it does, like, education is another one of those things. A bunch of liberals without children trying to tell other people how to educate their children. That's a fashionable belief. because you don't have skin in the game when it comes to education. You're out of school, but you're going to start telling parents what their children should be able to learn, and you have the audacity to want to vote about things to which you don't have any sort of skin in. Like, I can tell you right now, I don't vote for that kind of stuff. I don't vote for anything that doesn't involve me. Even though I could say my tax dollars goes to the school boards and all that kind of stuff, I definitely want to have a voice on it. I don't pay that much attention to it because I don't have children. I focus on the bigger issues that I have that involves my tax dollars, like going to stadiums and museums and all that other shit that I might not like. Education is on that list somewhere, but until the vote comes to abolish the school board, I'm just going to chill on the school board. I'll let the parents handle it, because they're the ones who are talking to these people. They're the ones whose kids are being miseducated. They're the kids who aren't reading up to the reading level. And I have plenty of friends. Almost all of my friends have children, and I talk to them. That's who I talk to. I don't go vote. Vote for what? I don't even know who these people are. I don't even know what the fuck they do, really. I'll talk to my friend. He has 2 daughters. Hey, do you know how stupid these fucking schools are now? Make sure your kids aren't in these schools, because he's working, he's not paying this shit any attention. I'm a little bit more of the political minded one. I'll tell him, check your daughter's homework, make sure this kind of shit is not in here. I used to tell my friends that all the time. Especially when they were doing the Zoom schooling. I would tell my friend, like, please stay in the room so that you will know what this shit that these teachers are plumping into your kid's head. Listen, read their homework. But as far as going and sticking my nose in the education pot, I don't vote for that shit. I don't even be bothered with it because it's not my business. I don't care. If your child is, 12 years old and read at a 3rd grade reading level, that's your problem. That's your fucking child. I'll be more than happy to help them catch up. But if you weren't paying attention to your child, and then the system fucked your child over, I'm sorry. What can I do? Go vote? That ain't gonna help your kid learn how to read. It's too late. You need to pay more attention. But these people who don't have kids, or they push abortion, maybe sometimes they even hate children. They're the ones who are jumping in both feet to tell you what your kids should be learning in school and why. Instead of asking you, are you okay with your kids learning this shit in school? Because if you are, okay, you're going to get what you pay for. But I haven't met anyone yet that when I come across something stupid and I say, man, please make sure your kids ain't learning this shit, I have yet to see one say, oh, that's cool, I'm all right with that. Almost every time they say, okay, well, yeah, thank you for letting me know that this kind of shit is happening. It happens every time. Leith LZ says, what about a case like Mel Gibson? He did a movie franchise with a black man, but when he got angry, he told his wife he wished black men would assault her. Just because he did a movie didn't mean that they were friends. That's the thing that I'm thinking of, Like, he got paid to do a movie franchise. And plus we don't know what his mental state was. He was probably drunk or high or something. But I think I remember I think he got recorded, didn't he, Mel Gibson? He also got recorded saying some wild shit about Jews. But then what you see is, what did he do? He took his own career in his own hands. He saw that he probably wasn't going to be able to get an opportunity from any of these big studios anymore. He took his career in his own hands. And he, what's the name, did the exact same thing, Isaiah Washington. Isaiah Washington was, he was a black actor. Well, I believe he was on ER. At least I think he was on ER, or was it one of those other doctor shows? But he had a problem with, I think it might have been the gay agenda, or was it the Jews? It was one of the two, where he had an issue, and he essentially got blackballed from Hollywood. And now the only movies he really can get starred in are movies that that are kind of off budget or kind of off, off Hollywood. that he kind of has to put together himself. You know, like you learn how to be independent once you get blackballed. You know, somebody mentioned blaxploitation movies earlier. That's kind of how a lot of blaxploitation movies actually got to happening, because black people decided they was going to take control of their own careers. You know, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Fred Williamson had his own production studio. He moved to Europe and started just pumping out blaxploitation movies, starring himself. If I remember correctly, it was Fred Williamson. You know, and that's a story that people should be talking about more, but they don't. You know, this was in the 60s and 70s. This man, you know, just said, fuck Hollywood, I'm going to do my own thing. Started just pumping out his own movies. That's a story everybody should know. That's an empowering story. Because either A, he felt like he couldn't rise above a certain level because he was black. B, he got tired of playing the same roles because he was black. C, he decided he wanted to just tell his own fucking stories and not tell the stories other people wanted him to tell. That's something. But of course, we know now that Fred Williamson doesn't exist. Spike Lee also doesn't exist, because it's all about who's the new guy, the Key and Peele guy, Jordan Peele. He's the new guy now. So movies begin and end with Jordan Peele and Tyler Perry. You know, anybody before Tyler Perry and Jordan Peele, they don't exist anymore. That's typical of you know, pop culture now. You know, when Spike Lee was a thing, nobody talked about the blaxploitation movies and stuff like that. They still act like all black casts on TV shows are special. It's 30 years of that shit. It's been 30 or 40 years of all black cast on television shows, and people still act like these are big deals. You know? Like, urban dramas like BMF and Power. They act like these things are somehow new, like they're revolutionary. Like they're not. There was urban dramas like New York Undercover in the 90s. There was, you know, urban dramas kind of like In Heat of the Night, which had it didn't have an all white cast. It didn't have an all black cast either. But it was in like the 80s. You know, like these shows existed. You're not doing anything groundbreaking. You're not doing anything new. You're not breaking any new ground. You're continuing a legacy. It would be nice if you would give the people who did this shit first, give them some credit. It would be nice. But it'll never happen. Let's see. Darren Gordon Hill says a recent award show, I'm token black and proud. I think I may have seen Jason Whitlock talk about this, and Jason Whitlock basically noted that it was deeper than this because the guy was gay, and that was the real reason why they gave him the job, not because he was black, but because he was gay, you know, or is gay. There's always more than one layer to it nowadays. You know, now that intersectionality exists, I can almost guarantee you that if they, you know, and we'll talk about this in a minute when it comes to Velma, and now Velma is gay. Like they tried to make Velma gay a long time ago, you know, to make her interesting. And that kind of is what they did with Tim Drake, you know, the Robin in DC Comics, where he was the boring one because he was the brainy one. You know, he was the one who was super smart, and you know he was just as smart as Bruce and all that kind of stuff. That made him boring. We don't know what to do with him. We'll just make him gay. So they're doing the same thing with Velma. Velma was boring, so maybe Velma would be interesting if she was black, or if she was Indian, or if she was gay, or if she had one leg and wore an eye patch, or she had superpowers or something like that. I mean, it does nothing really. It doesn't really change the character is boring. It would have been interesting if Velma was gay in 1972, because there wouldn't have been a lot of, you know, cartoon characters that were gay. But it's 2023. Half of everybody's fucking TV show is gay. So you just made a character even more boring because it's not exotic. It's not nothing new. You know? To me, if you wanted to make Velma interesting, make Velma the fucking villain. Which they kind of did with this show. Make Velma be, you know, somebody who committed a crime, and You know, she didn't think that the gang would ever catch on to it or something like that, or whatever the case may be. But I still wouldn't have done that because, again, it destroys the legacy character. Why? There's no reason to do that. AJ3 says manhood and masculinity is not represented and appreciated anymore in media entertainment. The news, everything is sad. Well, we could talk all day about, the lack of masculinity, the lack and how disruptive that has been. I think Critical Drinker just put out a video talk about modern movies hate men, and that's one of the reasons why they suck. And I cannot disagree. I didn't watch the whole video either. I just can't disagree. But that's also why I like the TV show Tulsa King. It had its sort of progressive moments, but ultimately the show did not sit around and ponder about toxic masculinity, or it was a take charge male character leading other characters and butting heads with other take charge male characters, which is the kind of shit you want to see. It was a fun show. Maybe I'll talk about it in a minute when I get done with this Scooby-Doo shit. The TLD, what is your view on my second comment, not the one about Scooby-Doo? I think I probably already read it. Black kids are just as smart as the rich kids because the black equals poor. Right. Yeah, Ferguson in 2014 was one too. Darren Gordon Hill has a question. Says, is Velma of such cultural significance to warrant all these reviews? I watched it so you don't have to. I'm not watching it or reviews of it. So who are they for? It's for the bonfire, and I didn't watch it either. And I'm not reviewing the show. I'm talking about this interview that Mindy Kaling did, in which she tries to pat herself on the back for the creation of the show. I never had any plans on watching this show because I knew what it was from the beginning. And guess what? Everybody did. Everybody knew what this show was from the jump. Is Velma of such cultural significance? Well, no, but the Scooby-Doo franchise is. The Scooby-Doo franchise is a multi-billion-dollar franchise featuring who knows how many different variations of these characters. And it's been going on for 60 years. Scooby-Doo is a franchise from the 60s. It has great cultural significance. But the point of it was to vandalize it. And people are going to point out when something of great cultural significance is being vandalized. They're going to note it. They want to make sure everybody sees it. The unfortunate thing is that feeds the algorithms, and it gets certain people to watch the show. And it's sad because people do hate watch these things. And that ends up with the show being successful. It's solely the only reason it's successful. Because if you look at the reviews are terrible. On Rotten Tomatoes has a not score, which not like you should care about Rotten Tomatoes, but it's one way of gauging whether people like the show or not. And people overwhelmingly hate the show, but they watched it, which is all the HBO Max wanted. That's all they cared about. That's all Warner Brothers cared about. Did you watch the show? You watched it? Thank you. You hated it? Too bad. You watched it, though. So now, guess what? We'll create another season, and we'll go harder so that you will be hate watching it again. It's stupid. White Jewish liberals, you mean? Well, I'm not going to go there. Let's not go there. Do rich white people and black people get along? I don't know. Ask Obama and Oprah. They seem to be getting along with white people all the time. Hell, half the motherfuckers whose lips that have to be surgically removed from Obama's ass are white. Probably more than that. Probably 60 to 70%. When white people, yes, Oprah and Jesse Jackson and, those guys were openly weeping when Obama was voted president. But nobody was happier than white people because it proves that they weren't racist. I voted for a black man, therefore I can't be racist. Only a couple of years later, It became, well, it doesn't matter who you voted for, it doesn't matter who you fuck, it doesn't matter who your best friend is, it doesn't matter what music you listen to, what TV shows you listen to. Oh, you like black athletes? Oh, you like, you just fetishize blackness. You don't really like black people. It's sad. It's truly sad, man. There's just no escaping it. Grandma can't afford Instacart. Well, if grandma can't afford Instacart, grandma probably can't afford shopping. And to be quite honest, in today's economy where eggs have shot up in cost, and I used Instacart today. I spent $122. That was a lot on Instacart, and I didn't get that much. I bought a pack of meat. I bought some salad toppings, some salad. I bought some oatmeal. I bought some Napa cabbage. I bought some broccoli, some chicken rings. Just not a lot of stuff, but that shit was very expensive. And then the to use the service, it was about $10, so it added about $10. Plus the taxes is what really would get you. Uber and Instacart and DoorDash and Uber Eats, all that kind of shit. It is it's the taxes that get you, and the fees, whatever. You kick back something to Instacart, that's fine, but it's the taxes that usually fuck you up. Amazon too. The public school system is bad. Yeah, it's very bad. It's pretty bad. Right, a non-parent telling parents what to do, like, that's nuts. It's nutty. People who ride the bus shouldn't be telling people who drive cars what to do. It's like it's hard. It's hard to explain, because I get why you want to have an opinion, because your money does go there, but ultimately you don't really have, you can't gauge the quality of the education because you don't use the system. How do you use the educational system to advocate for it? In what way do you use it? Like, I don't use the education system. I don't advocate for it the way that other people do, but I let the people who use the system tell me whether the system is working or not. And usually the education system is one of those things that you really don't know how bad it is until a couple of years later. That's really when you figure it out. Grey's Anatomy. Yep, that's the show Isaiah Washington was on. Lisa Elsie says, I always thought it was weird that rich black actors didn't start doing their own thing, since they say that Hollywood would limit the roles they could get. You would think so, but then they just go and beg Hollywood for more stuff. Just like the Oscar White and all that shit, right? You would think all these empowered Negroes would create their own franchise. No, they just complained to white people and they got what they wanted because they're purse puppies. They're not empowered, strong black people. They want to bark at their white masters who's going to give them a treat, and they're going to toddle off somewhere else. And I hate to put it that way, but that's just kind of how it is. If you're whining for everything, if you have to whine in order to get representation in the Oscars or the Grammys or whatever, you shouldn't be doing it. You shouldn't be doing it. Don't participate if that's how you feel. But I don't think they really cared anyway. I think that all of these things are just distractions from real issues. These black people, they find that the more successful they are, the less racial problems they have. So they have to now create new racial problems. And so now it's like, like when you talk about Oprah, right? She's so fucking fabulously wealthy. Most of her money came from white people. How could she feel bad about, racism? She used to eat, dirt. She was so poor in Mississippi. She got raped as a child and all this kind of stuff. She had a horrible childhood, and now she's a multi-billionaire. She is the very vision of the American dream. And yet she wants that I'm a victim clout. So now she talks about walking through stores and people watching her. It's like, you're probably because you're fucking Oprah, and they're in their show, and you're in the shop, and they're like, oh my God, Oprah Winfrey's in here. Oh my God. People have loved Oprah for 30 years, man. They damn near throw roses at Oprah's feet. and she still talks about how she's the victim of racism. Like, bitch, when? In what way? You know, like it's so strange. But you're not allowed to say that stuff. That's why I mean you get that learned helplessness. Because if you say Oprah Winfrey has been, she's what, 70 something years old, maybe in her late 60s. Oprah Winfrey has been rich 2 to 3 times longer than she was ever poor. She probably doesn't even remember what it was like to be poor. You know, that life is so far away, it might as well not even been her life anymore. You know, it was a long time ago. She's a completely different person. The world is a completely different place than when she was born. How can she still claim that she was a victim? Well, she has to make up shit. You know, these rich black actors, these rich black musicians, they have to make up shit. There's not enough black directors. There's not enough black people hanging up the lights. There's not enough black people sweeping the streets or whatever. It's like you're just creating shit because you want to be able to stand on stage and claim that you're standing up for something, when in reality nobody cares about any of this shit. You don't really care about that. You don't really care about if there's any black people on the Grammys board or anything. Like, what? Why do you fucking care? Half you motherfuckers only show up to get free stuff. You don't show up to the Grammys because you really care about the Grammys. Because you get $10,000 in treats when you show up. That's the only reason half these motherfuckers even come. Or to show off your new dress or whatever. You know? It's ridiculous. Darren Gordon Hill says, I get reviews of Avatar. It's a major motion picture. But Velma is pregnant Joker. It kind of is. It's one of those things that's going to come and go. You know, it's the outrage for the moment, and then and people are going to move on, for sure. Is Scooby in the show? I wouldn't know. I couldn't tell you. I can't tell you. The TOD is watching Black Caesar right now. Very cool. Nostalgia culture has helped ruin entertainment. I don't know, man. If people had nostalgia culture, I think they'd probably be better off. I think they'd be better off. The only reason that these zombie franchises keep getting pulled up is so they can be vandalized. They only try to go backwards and dig up Scooby-Doo or Power Rangers or whatever, Thundercats, is so they can ruin it. It's the only reason why they even go anywhere near it. Otherwise, they just create something new. But we're living in a society where people cannot create anything new. The only thing they can do is destroy. You know? It's that communist idea. They don't know how to create. All they care about is their politics. They're not creatives. They just want to put their politics into everything. That's what they want. So something that's already ready-made for them, an intellectual property, is already made for them. They could just insert their politics into Scooby-Doo or Thundercats or Teen Titans or whatever, because they don't have to create anything different. It's simple, you know? It's a ready-to-go system, and it'll trick people into watching it or getting into it because they love the franchise. But it's really just a way of brainwashing people. Ali Hankerson has watched Clockwork Orange. Honestly, more disturbing than the first time I watched. I haven't seen it in a long time. At least LG says supposedly some episodes titles for Futurama reboot have been leaked. One is called Zap Gets Canceled. Another is Rage Against the Vaccine. I have a bad feeling about this. Yeah, because Matt Groening, he's pretty fucked now because The Simpsons is pretty much dead. You know, The Simpsons is just wrecked. You know, so who knows? All right, let's get back to this article. Because this one article shouldn't take me this long to go through. And somebody mentioned something that I will be talking about eventually, which is Jaguar Wright. I'm going to talk about that, but I don't know that much about her. But I want to talk about it because I've seen her all over the place. So let's go back to this article. It says, quote, "It wasn't until we got much further down the road where it looked like this might actually happen that we really started to talk about how the character should look and should be South Asian. At the time, we were like, why wouldn't they be in this day and age? I don't understand. Why did you pick South Asian out of all the things that she could possibly be? That's because that's what Mindy Kaling is. This wasn't about the the intellectual property of Scooby-Doo or the legacy of Scooby-Doo. It was about the creator. She wanted to have a character who looked like her and I'm back. They tried to get rid of me. They tried to get rid of me, but I'm back. I'm back. They tried to get rid of me. They tried to get rid of me. They tried to get rid of me, but I'm back. They cut my Wi-Fi off. It was the damnedest thing. Like I started going on about something or other, and I got cut off. Wow, that has never happened to me before. I've never just been randomly cut off somewhere. Um, okay, but that was as I was saying, self discovery. Discovering yourself as if you're looking for yourself. That's that navel gazing we talk about, right? These people who aren't sure what they want out of life. You know, I don't know. Am I gay? Am I straight? Am I a woman? Am I a man? It's like, who the fuck thinks like this? Who does that stuff? Who sits down, you know, worried about that kind of shit? I hope I don't violate YouTube policy. I just got monetized. I ain't making no money off that shit yet, but I hope I didn't violate the policy already. I didn't mention any groups. I didn't say anything offensive. Anyway, uh, Grandy said, "quote I was interested in taking the comedy and the humor of the original and adapting it for older audiences, trying to make it with harder jokes and scarier as well." What? You're talking about trying to make the show scary? You know, who the fuck cares about the show being scary? I don't understand why we need to have. It feels like everything that comes out now is for adults. You know, it's very weird. It says, quote, the story, he said, almost looks at how their parents' personalities and decisions made them the people they ultimately become. Quote, That's such a trope in teen dramas, especially today. Teens paying for the sins of their parents. I really wanted to fold that into the series as well, Grandy said. The show will explain why Velma says Jinkies and when Norville becomes Shaggy. This is painful. This is painful. It's almost over. It says Velma also seeks to explain what happened to the characters as teens that would make them want to put themselves in danger to solve mysteries for free every week later in their lives. How about explaining how the fuck they become friends? You know? Like, after you do all this stuff to Fred and you talk about how stupid he is and how dumb he is and all this kind of stuff, and he's a terrible white guy just for being white and he's incompetent, why would he want to be your friend? Why would he want to be your friend? Is that... Again, that's one of those things where you say they must have white friends who are like this, who are, you can abuse me all day and I won't go away. I won't go anywhere because I got to have me a black friend. Nobody else is like this, man. Just about anybody else will be like, man, fuck off. You're offensive. But I'm not going to review the show. I don't care about that damn show. It's a stupid show. It's a stupid fucking show. Now, let's move on from Velma, because I spent a lot of time on Velma, and I really did not plan to spend a lot of time on Velma. I planned to read that article, but I didn't know that article was going to frustrate me as much as it did. Okay. AJ3 says, what happened to the Logo channel? I remember that channel was flooded with LGBTQI plus agendas and propaganda. Why not put all that on that channel instead of everywhere networks and streamings? Well, for the same reason that they destroyed BET, they destroyed, the gay network. Because Bravo used to be one of the gay networks too. Because Bravo was all about plays and art and stuff like that. A&E used to be about that stuff too. It is the story of integration. See, segregation created Logo, and it created where you have your gay stuff over here, everybody else's stuff over here. That's segregation. The gay people knew what they were going to get from the gay network. They could watch the gay network, have fun. The straight people don't have to watch it, and the gay people don't have to watch the straight stuff. Everything could have been great. But that's not what they wanted. They wanted integration. So now the LGBTQIA organizations want to have the gay agenda into everything. It's now got to be, I forget what it is now. It got to be 20% or 50% of every movie or something crazy like that. It is ridiculous. They are way overrepresented. There were some stories of people outside the United States thinking that America was like 80 to 90% black because of how many black characters would pop up in TV shows and movies and stuff. And they would think that, America was like, half black. And it's like, no, black people are, pretty rare in the United States. I do want to read, since we're talking about race, I want to read this. I hadn't planned on it, but let's talk about this. Like I said, I've been reading Afro Samurai, and the writer of Afro Samurai, the creator, his name is Takashi Okazaki, right? He wrote the foreword to this printing of Afro Samurai. I want you to realize that this guy basically studied Black American culture before he wrote Afro Samurai. I had such a great appreciation for this dude after I read this. So I want to share it. I want other people to read it. I want to read this. He says, when I was just starting out as an illustrator, I was frustrated by the lack of opportunities. It was 1998 and I was rolling with other illustrators of the same age who were in a similar situation. So I thought, well then, let's just spend our own money and draw what we want to draw. That's when I started the Doujinshi magazine, no, ha. Back then, opportunities to showcase my art on social media or the internet were limited. So I published my work in print at my own expense. We didn't have a lot of money, so we were all having to work part-time as well. Afro Samurai was born from a doodle I used to draw when I was an art student. At first, the characters were more pop and illustrative, but I was really into US TV show Soul Train from the 1970s at the time, and Don Cornelius and the Soul Train gang were really cool. So I thought, I'll draw a cool afro. So the idea was born from love for that show. This Japanese guy saw Soul Train and was like, black people look cool. I want to draw me some black people. But it didn't end there. He says, I wanted to create work that was my own, without being bound to any specific influences, although inspiration came from everywhere, from Star Wars to The Prisoner, and not just movies and manga, but music in general, especially hip-hop. While drawing Afro Samurai, I was listening to Jay Dilla, Pete Rock, Nas, Gang Starr, Black Star, Wu-Tang Clan, Marley Marl, A Tribe Called Quest, Slum Village, Public Enemy, DJ Jazzy Jeff, Mad Lib, too many to list here. Ask any black rapper today if they know any of the names I just mentioned. You can follow. There are so many black rappers that are under the age of 30 that if I mention Pete Rock, they have no idea who that is. DJ Jazzy Jeff, well, he was on a TV show. They probably know who he is. Slum Village, they have no idea who he is. Or who they are, I'm sorry. A Tribe Called Quest, they probably know Q-Tip, but that's about it. Gang Starr, well, they probably don't know Guru that well. He's been dead for a little while, but they probably know DJ Premier. Black Star. Do you think they've ever heard of Black Star? Talib Kweli and Mos Def, you think they ever heard of them? Probably not. Jay Dilla, everybody's heard of Jay Dilla, even if they haven't listened to him. So, black music, Soul Train, black music. He says, quote, seeing Do the Right Thing when I was in high school also had a huge impact on me. It was both shocking and a great movie in many ways, but there were things that most Japanese high school students didn't understand or appreciate. I liked hip-hop before that, but it was this movie that got me interested in its culture and historical background. Interesting. Filmmakers such as Kenji Misumi, Akira Kurosawa, Alejandro Jodorowsky, and Giorgio Leone were big influences, but it was a Panasonic TV commercial from 1988 with George Lucas that strangely made the biggest impression. The end line was, quote, always something new. That became my motto. The idea of blending a historical setting with futuristic elements came from my childhood love of period dramas, which I always saw as vivid fantasies. Rather than just the past being vaguely connected to the present, my thinking was strongly influenced by the art of the samurai and wizardry, Dungeons and Dragons, and fighting fantasy game books. So in my mind, the worlds of science fiction and historical drama naturally merged. And the coolest characters always seem to be the lone warrior of the samurai archetype. And I guess that my favorites, such as Sweetback from Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, all came together in my head to create this ideal Afro character. Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, which I think is the very first black movie that was ever produced with a black director. It's, oh God, his name right on the tip of my tongue. His son was in New Jack City. What the fuck is his name? Mario Van Peebles. Yeah, Mario Van Peebles. I forget his dad. So this was tremendous. This guy knows more about black American culture than half the dudes on TV whining about how black people don't have any culture. This fucking Japanese guy has a greater appreciation for black culture and created an iconic black character that's wholly original from his studying of black characters. So that's pretty much it. But that's the idea of where Afro Samurai came from. That's fucking cool. You know? That's some real special shit right there, man. I really, really had a great appreciation for that guy. I Any Japanese dude who sat through Sweetback's badass song, and I fucking hate that movie. But if you sat through it, more power to you. More power to you. Um, Soul Train rocks. All my good videos contain Soul Train footage. I love Soul Train. I loved it when I was a kid. You know, um, it's it was a great cultural artifact that I think people let die way too easily. Just because Don Cornelius died didn't mean Soul Train should have ended. Somebody should have picked it up and continued it. You know, it was it was an iconic brand. Now they have a YouTube account, Soul Train, but it's basically just interviews with the old Soul Train dancers and stuff like that. So, but I liked Soul Train. I really liked it, Soul Train. Park and Hunt did a college report on the LGBTQIA plus overrepresentation in TV back in college. Well, how did that go? I'm interested in that. Did you get booted out of the class? Because I'm pretty sure, you know, you might have. Melvin Van Peebles. That was Mario Van Peebles' father. Yes. He created Sweetback's badass song. That movie actually inspired the Black Panthers. You know, there is an article from Huey Newton where he writes about Sweetback's badass song and what he got from the movie and all that kind of stuff. So that movie really, really was involved. You know, culturally, it was big. Most people have never seen it, don't even know it exists. But it was an important black cultural movie. You know, nah, it'd all be like 21 Savage and people are twerking on each other and stuff. That's what modern day Soul Train would be. Did you see some racist cartoons that were banned because they were offensive? I think it's hard to say who or what is racist and who or what is making these decisions that something is racist. They just do shit. You know, it's just a bunch of people getting offended on other people's behalf. You know, it's really sad, and I really don't like it. You know, but I love Soul Train, man. Soul Train rules. Now, what do you guys want to talk about? I've talked about, you know, the racial stuff, the Velma. I really wish I hadn't gone into the Velma stuff, but whatever. You know, current events really should get people's attention. And I think I added something, because I'm not talking about the damn show. The show, everybody knows what the show is. Everybody knew Velma was going to be gay because they've been trying to force feed that meme for you know, probably not 30 years, probably about 10 or 15. They tried to force this whole Velma as gay thing. They changed Daphne's race so they won't have to make fun of her, but you know, it's very weird. Lord Kratos wants to talk about the UFC and Francis Ngannou. All right, so Francis Ngannou was released by the UFC. Dana White says he offered him enough money to make him the highest paid heavyweight in UFC history, but Francis Ngannou wanted to leave. Essentially, Francis Ngannou wants to get into boxing, and he wants to truly be an independent contractor, and you can't be mad at that. You know, he wants to try to fight Tyson Fury. If we're being honest, Tyson Fury would be a fool to take that fight. So he's probably going to make him fight somebody first. Make him fight Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua or somebody like that first. But I'm not hearing that Francis Ngannou has a strong boxing background. So I don't really see how he could just walk up, say I'm former UFC heavyweight champion, and get a big boxing fight, you know, $10 million or whatever. That's what he's thinking. He's thinking he's going to get $7 or $8 million to box. It might happen. There's a freak show aspect to it, I guess. But it all depends on his opponent and whether he's able to sell pay-per-views and whether he fucking wins. But at his age, I think he's in his mid-30s, to be just starting boxing. I don't know. But it's worth it. My thing is, I'm not mad at the guy for wanting to leave and wanting to do something else. It took forever for Dana White to finally give up on it, which I think is sort of it was a testament to Dana White because he really wanted to make this thing work. We don't know what he offered Francis Ngannou. People are comparing it to Brock Lesnar, saying that Brock Lesnar made $8 million in a fight once, and maybe that was about what they offered Francis Ngannou. But he thinks he can make more money boxing. He's not going to make that money anywhere else when it comes to MMA because nobody else can afford it. Like, if bare knuckle fighting championships could fucking afford it, they would snap up more talent for UFC. If Bellator could afford it, they would snatch up, UFC. They would snatch up these guys, but they can't. They can't afford it. So the idea is that he's going to jump to another MMA organization. Seems silly to me. I don't think they'll be able to afford it. So the only people who can afford it are boxers. Boxing promotions. But the thing is, the moment he loses in boxing, he loses all of the value that he had. So, I don't know. If he fights somebody other than Tyson Fury and he loses, which he probably will, he would have lost his value in boxing. And because he burned that bridge with UFC, Dana White's not going to want to give him that much money anymore. I got to look up the Jaguar Wright thing before I talk about it because I don't know enough about the situation. And I don't know that much about her, to be quite honest. I just know that I've seen her way too many times talking shit about other people. And a lot of her conspiracy theories. But we'll talk about it once I find an article or something that could tell me about this situation. But matter of fact, here's one right here. We'll talk about it in a minute. But Francis Ngannou, he wants to fight for more money than the UFC is willing to pay him, so he wants to leave. To me, this is how the situation should be done. UFC wanted him to stay. They wanted to renegotiate. He sat down at the table. He told them what he wanted to do. He didn't just want the money. He also wanted to go out and box. They said, if we give you the money, you can't go out and box. He said, well, fuck that. I'd rather go box. So it is what it is. And, it was crazy because they set that dangerous precedent with McGregor. They let him do it. And so once they let McGregor do it, everybody figured they want to do it too. Because they like, okay, what McGregor make fighting Mayweather? I want that paycheck too. And he didn't get knocked out or embarrassed. He lost, but he didn't embarrass himself too much. If Ngannou, but see, the thing is, he shouldn't make the decision to leave without the money being there. He got a monkey branch. If he already got a big money fight with like Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury set up, I understand why he left. But I don't see that being the case. But I think he's become a hero to the journalist class. And, they're some of the worst people in the world. They're not worse than pedophiles or anything like that. But MMA media is as bad as the wrestling media. Where, they just want to see people stick it to Dana White and the UFC. And so they're all 100% behind Francis Ngannou leaving. But my thing was, okay, he quit the organization that would pay him the most money. Now, where do you suggest that he work? Oh, he's going to bounce around from Bellator to blah, 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 at one and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, and then who is going to pay him more per fight than UFC is willing to pay him? Nobody has the answer to that. They just want, if you claim that you want the best for the fighter financially, you should want the fighter to stay in the UFC. Because you already know that Bellator can't afford it. You already know One can't afford it. You already know Bare Knuckle can't afford it. You already know these organizations can't afford it. So why would you push for him to leave? That's what I want to know. Why would you push for him to leave? Now he's left. He's got his quote unquote freedom. But that financial aspect of it is temporary. You know, if he Darren Gordon Hill is absolutely correct, and this is what I was telling Jonathan Snowden as he's an MMA journalist. It costs you nothing. You know, it doesn't cost you a damn thing. Everybody who pushed, told, whispered in his ear that this was the right decision to make. It's like, okay, you're assuming he can get these fights. You're assuming that Tyson Fury is even interested in boxing this guy. I have not seen anything from Tyson Fury that suggests that he's even interested in fighting Francis Ngannou. So, where did you get that from? You got it from Francis Ngannou, who said that's what he wants to do. But guess what? There's somebody else involved. This ain't the UFC. Tyson Fury is the money. He's the A side of this situation. You know? He's the guy people are paying to see. And it's almost exactly the same thing with the MMA media and the wrestling media. They're almost exactly the same. They don't understand. And they say this, when they talk about all this UFC bootlickers and UFC kiss asses and everybody's so up the ass of Dana White, yada, yada, yada. And I'm saying to myself, bro, the only reason, 99% of the reason why people even watch fucking mixed martial arts is because of UFC. UFC is the Band-Aid of mixed martial arts. It's the brand that every single motherfucker knows. You can't talk a motherfucker into watching Bellator or One or anything else, Ryzen. No, they're not going to watch that shit. They're watching UFC or nothing. Okay? That's the brand that everybody knows. So if you want to argue that Francis Ngannou was this big draw, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Is he a draw or is UFC the draw? Because it's the exact same conversation I end up having with fucking wrestlers. Oh, Sasha Banks and blah, blah, blah. They're such huge draws. And I just say, man, are you sure about that? You know? Are you sure about this? Because it costs you nothing to say all the shit that you're saying. This person who's putting their body on the line, if they go and burn this bridge, that could cost them a lot. Now, the Sasha Banks situation, which I've seen people try to say that it's the same thing between Sasha Banks and Francis Ngannou. I don't. Yes and no. You know, Sasha Banks is probably not going to make as much money as she would make in WWE, but she's not under that contract either. And she's had this situation where she knows that the only way to increase her value to WWE is to step outside of WWE. And she knows that. Everybody knows that. That's why she started doing movies and stuff like that. She's trying to increase her value. So going to Japan and all that kind of stuff is trying to increase her value. But I can tell you, man, I'm not seeing it. I think that, what is this a bad move on his? Like, there is no bad moves when it's something you want to do. It's about whether it's a financially, a financial decision that makes sense. You know, if he wants more money, UFC was willing to give him more money. Were they willing to give him $8 million or whatever the fuck they gave Brock Lesnar? Probably not. I don't believe Dana White was going to give him $8 million for one fight. And all that kind of stuff. I don't believe that. I believe Dana offered him more money, sure. but you also don't want to break your budget. You know, UFC is a line item for Endeavor now. They're not on their own. You know, they're a line item. They're owned by another entity. Okay, they have to watch their budget. They have to watch how much money they spend. They would have to do that anyway. But really, when you're dealing with somebody else's money, you have to make sure that you're not, fucking up the church's money. If they offer this fucking guy money he can't make back, which is also the issue that I'm not hearing. I keep hearing so much from these wrestling journalists and these MMA journalists about how much money, Brock Lesnar should be making and how much money Roman Reigns could be making if they joined a union and all this kind of shit. And I say, are they going to make that money back? We should pay everybody $15 million. Are they going to make that money back? Crickets. They have no fucking idea. The NFL, NBA, they can say yes, they'll make that money back. You can give $100 million or $200 million or whatever to LeBron James, he'll make that money back. Will Francis Ngannou make that money back if you give him that money? Is he going to come back? Again, that's the thing where everybody has this, not just virtue signaling, but it's this stupid communist anti-corporate idea that we can bankrupt the corporation because they don't matter. The fighters are all that matters. Well, if that was the fucking case, then there wouldn't be any promoters. Guys would just show up and say, I want to fight somebody, and a bunch of people will come watch. No. The promoters make the fighters half the time now. But I give the guy credit. He stuck to his guns. He said he wanted out of his contract. He didn't let Dana White talk him back into it. So that's good. He got what he wanted. Everybody got. Dana White didn't get what he wants, so now the MMA media is very happy. I saw some dweeb say that he should take the belt and dump it in the trash on Bellator or something like that. And I was like, dude, you're not operating in reality. You're not operating in reality. Okay? If he does that, Bellator getting sued. All right? Is it really worth it at that point? Is it really worth it at that point? If he takes the UFC heavyweight title and throws it in the garbage, for starters, he's never coming back. Dana White's going to make sure, unless it, financially it makes sense, he's never going to come back. Well, he's going to cripple, he's probably already at the tail end of his career anyway. It's going to cripple the amount of purchasers. When you're an independent contractor, everybody is a buyer, right? He's putting himself in the chair, no different than when Vince sits in the chair in Apple and Comcast and everybody else is offering for their services. When you're an independent contractor, he's an independent contractor. That's what's going on. He wants to sit in this chair, and then somebody pitches him an idea. Hey, we got this guy. We want you to fight him. We'll pay you blankety blank. Hey, we got this guy. We want you to fight him. Blankety blank. Now, he's not going to be able to do too many of these because it's MMA. So that means he's going to have to pick his first fight very, very well. And once he has the first fight, then we'll see what he's really worth. What's the draw? And then whether he wins or loses is an important thing too. Because if he doesn't draw and he loses, Dana White, I dodged a bullet. Because the guy's worth nothing now. He lost. If he dominates whoever, which he probably will because he is legitimately very good, but he doesn't make his money back, Dana White can be like, whew, I dodged a bullet. He's not a draw. If he knocks the fucking guy out that he fights, makes his money back, and then somebody else, he's got sit in the chair, he can ask for more money. Because now I'm a draw and I know I'll win. At least I believe I'll win. That's why he probably shouldn't box first. But if he wants to get into the boxing, he's got to fight somebody before he fights Tyson Fury. And Tyson Fury will be stupid to just let him walk into a boxing arena and give him a title shot. Because if he fucks around and wins, it's embarrassing. But if you beat him, it's not gonna. It's not. It's a worse. It's really worth the effort to beat up a guy who doesn't have a boxing record. The real issue is if he fucking wins. That's the issue. You know, the issue is if he fucking wins, which you know everybody has a puncher's chance for the most part. Tyson Fury will be smart to say, you know, you probably should fight somebody else first. You know, maybe you should fight 2 fights first. Fight somebody else. Might want to get your feet under you first, and then you can. Tyson Fury don't need the money, and Ngannou needs the money. So, yeah, go let him fight somebody else first. If he loses, gets knocked out or whatever, you don't got to worry about him anymore. But so, there's no bad decision when it's something you want to do. You know, he wanted out of UFC, he got out. That's great. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Smooth Realism says UFC is the main attraction, but they're still cheap. They have the bread to pay more, but they choose not to. Well, it's partially because of how many shows they promote per year. You know, Dana White, I think, broke this down beautifully when it comes to how these boxing promoters work versus how UFC promotions work. UFC tries to have a show pretty much every weekend or every other weekend, which means they're going to cheap out on this show because they have to pay the guys the next week. And then they're going to cheap out this, here so they can pay these guys. And they're going to cheap out here to pay these guys. And then eventually somebody's going to get paid a lot of money because that's going to be the big show. But they try to have these fight nights and all this kind of stuff. And they got to have money for the fight of the night and the knockout of the night, submission of the night, bonuses and everything. Can they pay these guys $7 or $8 million per fight? Sure. But then there'll probably be 3 UFC shows in the entire fucking year. Then what? You damage your brand. Your brand basically fucking disappears from that point. You're not going to do that because that's what boxing does. They have some of these places will have 2 fights a year essentially where any money is made. If that, they might have 1 fight per year where money is made. So it's smart. But UFC has decided they are a brand that's going to try to put out fights fairly quickly rather. And they're going to do the fight nights and smaller cards and stuff like that. Then they'll set a big pay-per-view fight or whatever further on down the line. In doing that, you have to pay those guys, and you got to pay them pretty well. And in boxing, that's not what they do. Boxing, I can pretty much tell you, and I've seen this because I think somebody put out, I forget, I don't know if it was Top Rank or Golden Boy, but they put out the pay rate for boxers. And you will see that there's boxers on the card that make $600 for a fight. $600. The top guys will make $2 million, $3 million, $5 million. The guy who's on the undercard, $600. Won't even cover the cost of his training. Because like Dana White says, man, boxing is a going out of business sale. They just try to promote a 1-fight show. That's really all it is. So everybody else is just lucky to be there. And the economics bears that out. If you get on the card, you barely get anything. And it's fucked up. And boxing economics is trash. But you see MMA journalists talk about how great it is. Because, it doesn't have big time promoters, it doesn't have a UFC. And that's all they care about. They just hate the UFC. That's really what it boils down to. They don't really care about the fighters. They just want to hate the UFC. Lord Kratos says, did you hear about the senator trying to expand the Ali Act to include MMA? Yes, they've been doing this for a long time now. There's been a couple of fighters that want this. All the journalists want it. You know, I've just seen so many journalists that want to expand it. They're not thinking about it. See, there is a channel called MMA On Point. They did a wonderful what if story on, you know, what happens if the Ali Act expands to include MMA. Everybody should watch that if you're interested in MMA, because it's exactly what will happen. There's no more UFC because it can't exist. So there's a bunch of fighters out there trying to find out how they can make the most money. So a guy like Conor McGregor will make $15 million or whatever the fuck. But if you're just getting on the scene, you're not going to make anything. You know, you're going to be fucked. And you're going to be scratching and clawing, trying to find a fight. It's not going to happen. Because boxing is fucking fucked, you know, because of the way that boxing works. These guys can handpick their own opponents. They're not going to fight anybody who could possibly beat them. They don't care about these fucking championships. None of these championships matter. You see how they say, well, they try to mandate an opponent. And that fucking fighter will throw that belt in the garbage. They don't care. What matters is my record and that I can tell people I'm an undefeated welterweight champion or whatever. And if you tell me I have to fight this guy I don't want to fight because either A, he's going to whoop my ass, B, he's going to give me too much trouble and hurt my earning power in the future, C, I'm just not a warrior and I don't want to fight this fucking guy, then fuck it, I'll throw this belt in the garbage because I am the value, not your fucking belt. I'll throw your belt in the garbage. And they'll do it. And boxing does this shit literally all the time. They don't give a fuck about that stuff. That's why none of it matters. That's why you can't draw anybody in with this IBF WBO championship. You can't. That shit not a draw. Nobody gives a fuck about that stuff. Nobody even knows what it means. People pay attention to names. Have I heard this name before? Am I familiar with this fighter? You know, that matters. And so much, a lot of people walk away with a lot of injuries in boxing and not a lot of money. Very, 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 very few fighters are going to walk away with some money. And that's going to be true regardless of what you do with it. Ali Act, no Ali Act. The only thing is, a smaller number of people are going to make more money with the Ali Act. Conor McGregor and Israel Adesanya and John Jones, they're going to make a grip more. They're going to make so much more. Everybody else is going to be screwed. You know? Because boxing is just the very, very, very rich fighters who are overprotected and overprotective, and then everybody else who are middling fighters who make less than minimum wage. They're going to put months and months and months and months of work in only to make $700. It's like, that's dumb. That's dumb, but typical journalists, they don't care. They're not thinking about that shit. They don't care. All they care about is what they want. You have to ask them sometimes, is it about you or is it about them? You know? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, oh, it's about the fighters. I care about the fighters. I care so much about the fighters. All right, so where are they going to make more money than UFC? Oh, we want to force the UFC to make them pay them more money. Are you going to force people to pay more for the UFC too? Because they already got an upcharge. You already got to pay $9 or whatever for ESPN. Plus, right, I'm sorry. And then you have to pay, what, $54 for the upcharge? Come on, man. And then they complain about the cost. They complain about the cost while also complaining that the fighters don't make a lot of money. It don't work that way, dog. You know, money has to come from somewhere. You want Conor McGregor or, you know, John Jones or whatever to make $10 million a fight or whatever the fuck. All right, who's going to pay for it? Oh, Dana White's going to pay for it? Okay. Who's going to pay him for it? You? You going to pay $100 for this show? Oh, no, you're not. Okay, well, fuck it then. This conversation is over. Again, virtue signaling costs nothing. Didn't cost you a goddamn thing to run your mouth. Um, so let's finally get to Jaguar Wright. I have no idea why this guy wants me to talk about Jaguar Wright because I've never talked about her before. It seems like all she does is do sit down interviews, talking about the supposed dirty underbelly of the music industry and the Satanism, and she did make a good point when it comes to um, about Diddy, I think it was. Okay, yeah. So you want to start? Yeah, let's start about who Jaguar Wright is. So Jaguar Wright is a sort of neo soul singer. She I think she did 2 albums. They were okay. They kind of mid. She used to hang out with she's from Philadelphia. She used to hang out with the Roots, and she basically comes from that camp. Um, so she's sort of an I don't think she was one of the Soulquarians, but she's from that whole Roots crew camp, basically. And basically now she's become just a songwriter. She doesn't really sing that much anymore. And she's become famous in recent years for these explosive sit down interviews that she does, where she basically talks about people being, bought off or pedophiles or abusive, whatever. I think she recently also said that Common sexually assaulted her or a friend of hers or something like that. It was it's pretty trashy, gossipy stuff that she puts out there. So now apparently she's gotten arrested. Everybody thinks that she's on drugs and stuff anyway, but I found an article on it. Um, let's see. It says some shocking footage released online recently showing police arresting Jaguar Wright for an alleged domestic dispute. Moreover, the video comes from the incendiary R&B singer's husband, who filmed the incident and shared it on social media. According to her husband, she and an ex-cult member named Solar came to the barbershop he was at. During the altercation, they fist fought and Wright allegedly dumped some of her son's ashes. What? Furthermore, in the video that Wright's husband shared, he explains his side of the story. Before that, in the video, you can see the authorities take the singer away. She came up in here and assaulted me while I was at the fucking barbershop, he said. Her and fucking Solar came to the barbershop, bruised me and assaulted me, throwing her son's ashes out the car, calling niggas bitches and hoes. Somebody else called the cops on her. I can't calm her down. Last we heard of Jaguar Wright in the news, she made some damning accusations of assault to her ex-partner Common. Ex-partner. Yeah, they used to own a McDonald's together. That was her fucking boyfriend, okay? From what Wright's husband explained, she's been very involved in alleged cult behavior with supposed members. What? While police took her away, he aired out his frustrations with her proximity to another circle. He says, I never caused this to my wife. She did this to herself hanging out with motherfucking sex cultists. They both fucking drunk as fuck. Later, he explained an incident that happened the night before where they fought over a gun. However, it seems that they called the cops for that incident as well, although it's the only account we have of the incident. Please pray for her. Her husband pleaded in the video. Please, please, please pray for her. Pray for us. I don't know why she did this shit, bro. Wow. That being said, in another video from Wright herself, you can see a small part of the fight between Wright and her husband, as multiple people, both from the barbershop and close to each other, try to intervene. You can hear the argument between everyone. Afterwards, the singer goes back to her car, calling out her husband's entourage and asking for Solar. Also, the video shows her throwing what seems to be her son's ashes, as she mentions him. Whatever the case, people in the comments are hoping she gets help soon. Oh, this is horrible. Yeah, see, she has done nothing recently except attack other people like Jay-Z and Beyonce and She attacked members of the Roots and Alicia Keys, and she just kind of goes on and on and on with this kind of stuff. And it's ridiculous, you know. But I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this information. You know, like I'm trying to figure out what this information is. Clearly, if you have seen any videos from this woman, you know that she has these manic episodes, and she kind of does these Vlad TV style exposés on people, and it's sad. You know, it's truly sad to see the state that she's in. But you know, she was an okay singer. She lost her goddamn mind and started attacking. Look, I support people attacking the industry that they're in. And she really went hard, and she tends to go very hard on the music industry. I support that. But I think she should chill. You know, maybe get her own house in order. She seemed to have mental health problems. You know, probably drugs and alcohol. But what can you say? All right. Top Dog asked me what my favorite TGIF show was during the 90s. I could tell you comfortably I didn't have one. I didn't watch TGIF really. I looked a little bit at Family Matters, but I didn't really watch it too much. Anything else before we wrap it up? Anything else? All right. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to come up with something. I really didn't want to dedicate this entire show to Velma. It ended up being that way. That's too bad. But I'm gonna try to watch a movie or something for next week so that we'll have something to talk about. I didn't watch any movies this week or anything like that. So, hold on. Top Dog says, "Where do you rank Kobe and Shaq for all-time NBA duos?" I don't watch basketball, so I can't answer that question. I don't really watch. I watched the Pistons when they were good when I was a kid, and I watched the Pistons when they were good in 2004. But I don't really watch basketball. Not really. I barely watch football, and you can actually get me to watch at least a quarter or two of a football game. If it's a good game, I'll watch the whole thing. But basketball, it's too many games. None of them matter. You know, in the best of 7 series, you can skip games to a degree. Watch Batman the Animated Series. I will eventually do that. You know, I'll eventually jump into Batman the Animated Series. I gave up on Ben 10, man. I'm not even about to try. I can't do it. I can't make it. I have not watched an episode in a month. There's just really no. There's really no benefit to me even lying to you guys and telling you. It's not that the show is so bad. It's just that the show is boring. It's boring as fuck to me. And to me, I can't get through it. Biden's documents. Okay. So, apparently over the last several weeks, they've been finding classified documents in Biden's residence. Similar to when they found some documents in Trump's possession, in Mar-a-Lago. What was this, like a year or so ago? And people are making a big deal about it, that they want Joe Biden investigated. And a lot of this stuff is from when he was vice president. It's an interesting thing because as we sit and watch people twist and turn in the wind, as they tried to hang Trump for it, and now they find out that that this guy Biden did the exact same thing, and they're trying to make up all these excuses to how it possibly could have happened. My thing is, that's a distraction. I don't give a fuck about him having classified documents. I really don't. You know, there are far bigger issues, you know, with the Biden administration than some classified documents that ended up in his possession that he shouldn't have. Bad Biden, you have paperwork that you shouldn't have. Unless he made copies of them and sold them to foreign governments, I really don't give a shit. You know, our inflation is out of control. You know, our economy is getting destroyed. You know, we got companies that should be doing very well that aren't. We're attacking the average person's lifestyle again with the gas stoves and stuff like that. That stuff is far more important than these fucking documents. You know, unless there's something on these documents that is really really important. Again, they're classified, so we're not allowed to know what's in them. So I don't care. All right, if you can't tell me what was in it, unless it's Epstein's flight plan and you're gonna expose everybody that was on the Epstein Island, I don't give a fuck what's on those paperwork, because you're not gonna tell me anyway. You're just gonna say, oh, it was Biden had some documents that he wasn't supposed to have. Like, okay, great. What was in them? We're not allowed to tell you. Okay, then what the fuck you telling me about it for then? Only if he had child porn, you would say he had child porn, right? You know, it's the same thing with this Biden had a secret granddaughter. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. My mom might have a secret granddaughter, for all I know. I don't know. I don't care about crackhead Hunter Biden having secret love children. I don't care about Biden having documents that I'm not allowed to know what's in it. I don't care about that shit. I'm focused on, why are we attacking the average person and their lifestyle? Why are we making it so difficult for the average people? I'll tell you what you should be paying attention to, because it's real. Lauren Southern, she did a short documentary on homelessness in Vancouver. Look that up. What is going on in Vancouver about homelessness? It's an industry that is happening in every single American city in the United States. It's been going on in California. It is incredibly bad. It is it's the government, it's NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations, or what they call community organizations, and they work together to fuck over the people that they're claiming that they're supposed to help. They're not building any housing units. They just talk about meetings, and they have more meetings. And meanwhile, these people soak up six figures. And if you ever fix the homelessness problem, all these people are out of work. So guess what? You never fix it. Same thing with drug issues. Same thing with mental health issues. Same thing with racial issues. It's all the same. It's all basically a money laundering scheme. And I remember I was just telling this guy about the Ukrainian war. It's the same thing. You know, the Israeli-Palestinian thing, the Saudi Arabia stuff, anything they try to get you upset about, ask yourself if it's going to cost you money. Everybody tries to hate Saudi Arabia. Guess what? They give billions of dollars to Saudi Arabia. We have military bases in Saudi Arabia. They're not our enemies. They give Saudi Arabia billions of dollars. Saudi Arabia turns around, buys guns from the United States. Israel. They talk about how terrible the Palestinians are. Sometimes they'll talk about how terrible the Israelis are. They give them billions of dollars. They give the Palestinians billions of dollars. They turn around, buy guns from the United States. Israel turn around, buy guns from the United States. It's money laundering. The Ukrainian war, in my opinion, is nothing but fucking money laundering. They're giving Zelensky all this fucking money. He's going to turn around, buy guns, or pay for mercenaries from the United States. And they're doing it right in front of you, basically. Why else would they give this motherfucker $70 billion or whatever the fuck? Since when do we care about Ukraine? You should have to be able to find Ukraine on a map before you okay with Ukraine getting $7 billion or whatever the fuck they're about to get. If you can't find it on a map, you shouldn't be giving them money. That includes Zimbabwe, fucking Kenya, or whatever else. You know, it's all just a smokescreen. Don't talk about inflation. Don't talk about the mass closing of jobs. You know, the fucking up of the economy. Don't talk about any of that. They would rather you talk about Joe Biden having a little bit of dirtiness with some classified documents, then again having a real conversation about what the fuck his son was doing in Ukraine. And he was pulling money out of the Ukraine back then, back when his brain actually worked. 10% for the big guy. There's fucking video of that. Of him talking about firing a prosecutor in the Ukraine. There's video of that. We should be talking about that. That's corruption. That's real corruption. And now, funny that people can't find fucking Ukraine on a map. Yet, Biden's son spent years in Ukraine making money, doing something he's probably unqualified to do because he's well connected. And now, since Biden is in office, the Ukraine is getting billions and billions of dollars from the United States. Wow. Funny how that works out. But talk about them documents. Talk about this, granddaughter he doesn't know. Like, nah, man. Stay on message. The message is these motherfuckers are dirty. And they're up to no good. Oh, yeah, and the Miss Universe thing. I guess people should talk about that, too. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, because I try to avoid this subject, but apparently some woman, quote-unquote, purchased Miss Universe for $20 from Endeavor. The same Endeavor that people want to buy WWE. They sold the Miss Universe brand to a transsexual who then turned around and says that he is the first woman to own Miss Universe. And now it's going to be run by women. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Get out of here. That's a slap in the face. It's some Taiwanese multi-billionaire, whatever the fuck. Come on. What a joke. WG Phil, thank you. You're going to carry on the Ben 10 watch. I can't do it anymore, man. I can't make it. I can't even get myself to watch that shit. I tried. I guess I'll talk about Tulsa King next week because I'm getting kind of tired and I got to go to work in the morning. Top Dog, why don't people like Superman? Why do people find him so overrated? Well, because Superman seems to have, over years, they have just decided to just add more powers to him. His power is limitless. So, Superman's is a character. He has all of these cool abilities, but his power set isn't really what makes him interesting. And if you have a good hero, your power set doesn't want to make you interesting anyway. It's your ideology. It's your philosophy. And that's really why people like Superman. They like Superman philosophy. But the people who don't like him just think he's boring. He's kind of generic. He's a very vanilla superhero. He embodies all the good things. God and country, and there's nothing edgy about Superman. The edgiest thing he does is kind of lie about who he is. But he can do that and then hide behind the whole idea that he cares so much about his family and friends that he doesn't want them being targeted. He's bulletproof. He can fly. He respects everybody. He likes everybody. People are starting to they want characters that are edgy. That's why people have started taking the Superman, everything about Superman and turning it evil or whatever. Because that, in their way, they're making it more interesting. But in reality, they're just making it, they're sullying the shining city on the hill that is Superman. Batman can be the guy who can be, the dirty, the grimy, the cut corners kind of guy. That's not Superman. That's not who he is. Would you review an old Nickelodeon show? Depending on what it is. Darren Miles reviews Cyberpunk Edge Runners. I don't even know what that is. Were you a fan of the Gargoyles back in the day? Probably. I don't remember it much. I told y'all I bought the comic book, right? I bought the Gargoyles comic that was just released a couple of weeks ago. I probably won't go to the second floppy because I thought the first one was pretty bland. and I saw some things in it that I didn't like. Like, I'm telling you, if I see ex-partner to speak to a girlfriend or wife or something like that, or I see it being called your partner, I'm already out. You know? Because nobody in real life talks like that. That's only shit you see on TV and on the internet. I've never met somebody who had a girlfriend who didn't call him their girlfriend. I never met a girl who had a boyfriend, didn't call him her boyfriend. I see on TV all the time, this is my partner. Nobody talks like that. You know? Who's going to be offended by the word husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend? Get the fuck out of here. I'm already out. And I think they used that language in that Gargoyles book. There was nothing terrible about it. It was just bland. You know, just bland and inoffensive. No combat scenes or anything like that in it. Just kind of perfectly, here's all the characters, here's their personalities. I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. But as far as the TV show, I probably watched it as a kid, but it's not one of the things that stuck with me, really. I remember the premise, but it never really stuck with me. Would you review Kenan and Kel or All That or Ren and Stimpy? You just picked the three worst fucking Nickelodeon shows, really. I fucking hate Ren and Stimpy. I hate Ren and Stimpy with the heat of 1,000 suns. I will not watch Ren and Stimpy. I will not. All That, I was never a fan of it, even as a kid. And Kenan and Kel, I don't like those fucking guys. I never was a fan of any of those shows. Rugrats, sure. Roscoe's Modern Life, sure. Those three fucking shows? New. Pass. When is the next watch along? I don't know. That's a good question. To that point, I guess we could close on this. There's going to be some modifications to the channel. I think I told y'all a while back that I was angling for this promotion. And I ended up getting it, so that was pretty cool. But my hours are now changing. So instead of working 3 days a week, now I'm going to be working 5. But it's going to be shorter days. So that means starting a stream at 9 o'clock at night and ending at midnight. Probably not the best idea, because now I actually do have to go to work on Fridays. This will start next week. So next Sunday, it's going to be another 8 o'clock stream. Because usually if I have to work on Sundays, the stream will be at 9 o'clock. But since I don't have to work weekends now, it's going to be at 8 o'clock. And the Thursday stream is also going to be earlier. So this might be the last stream that's like 2.5 hours or whatever. There's going to be some changes. Probably not a lot, though. You know, I will keep you guys posted if things absolutely have to change, but I don't think that they will have to. I think if anything, I can get some stuff done sooner, but I won't have as much time to recover because now I have to work 5 straight days. But at least on the weekends, I'll be cool, you know. So I was thinking about bumping the Thursday stream to Friday and doing it after SmackDown, and maybe putting the SmackDown review into that stream. I was thinking about that. Then also, I kind of liked leaving it on Thursdays and having Fridays to myself, and then just doing the SmackDown review. But I'll think about it. And I'll keep you guys posted. Yes, Batman used to kill people in the older series, much older Batman series. He also used guns in a much older series. But ever since they sort of adopted the Batman no kill rule, I think Batman doesn't kill, you know. So that's where that comes from. All right, I gotta finish washing my clothes. Thank you guys for stopping by. I appreciate everybody for their continued support, whether you're here for 30 seconds or 2 hours. Feel free to join the Discord. I will put it in the comment section for anybody who is not a member. And stay in touch, man. Follow me on Twitter at MongoSlade8. It's wild that it's interesting because I think everybody who's listening to my voice has Twitter, but they don't follow me on Twitter. What's up with that? What's up with that? I still only have like 800 or whatever subscribers on Twitter. Some of you probably don't have Twitter. That's okay. But some of you just like okay, you like the YouTube, but that's it. But I appreciate everybody for stopping by, man. WG Phil, I'll see you guys later. In some cases, I'll see you guys in the Discord after the show. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace.